This vibrant green color shows up in the strangest places in Genshin. Under the sea, in the sky, in gems, or even in giant bracelets. There has to be something that ties them together. So over the course of a few weeks, I decided to put a series of videos together to share my findings. Natlan's final chapter showed us the true colors of Teyvat in the Mare Javari. Unlike the harsh winds of the past, the aptly named Easy Breeze Holiday Resort showed us the color palette of the Asha, giving us more hints to the creation of the world, as the world feels more and more like a tapestry that's just been repainted. There is a suspicious grey colour that shimmers, but that is another time because my personal nightmare appeared, this time in the most unexpected place. So as I leveled my tablet of toner to level 50, there it was. Within the wheel of the sun sparkled the neon green that makes no sense. Genshin is a game that pays close attention to storytelling and design. This is a trend in their iconography, costumes, mediums of art within their video trailers, gameplay mechanics, and even event interfaces. Even though currently in the story, we're investigating the moons and the traveler learns the significance of purple, the color of memory, further hinting at the existence of abyss magenta. This shade of green still goes unexplained. So this video is going to be an analysis on Jade after the story of Natlan, a region inspired by Mesoamerican culture that had high regards towards Jade and included it in ritualistic traditions. We're going to discuss a lot, including the tablet of toner in Natlan, Arkhium production, King Deshret and the votive rain Jade. With that said, I have my coffee ready. I'm Gemini and I'm looking for forbidden knowledge. This is a leaks-free theory video. To begin, we must return to a region that officially introduced us to Jade. While not the first time Jade was mentioned in game, it sure made us question how the those bracelets are so big. Chenyu Vale's story had us helping an adeptus fish called Fujin. She was shimmering in gold but was weak in power from the Archon War. She was attempting to restore the balance between the water and soil throughout the Vale, using the sacrifice of rain jades. The ancestors of the people of Chenyu Vale once offered Jade by throwing it into the water, transferring adeptal energy into spirit vein. During the quest, Fujin's adeptal energy has transformed into many spirit carp that are scattered all over Chenyu Vale. By the end, these spirit carps are offered to the votive rain jade to give Fujin her human form. According to various murals, before migrating to the Vale, its people came from the area of the chasm. The people carried the ceremonial jade altar all the way up the mountain. On another hand, the Jade Fall Splendor's description starts with the splendid jadeite fell from the sky, washed by the ever-flowing cleansing waters. Now, we also know that there are 3 moons that fell. So really, it begged the question, what's the difference between a crater made by a moon falling as opposed to a celestial nail falling? If the chasm's nail went straight underground, then this impression in the landscape could be made from a moon. In the same line, I've always wondered why Old Mondstadt was within a crater with a tower that seals 1,000 winds, or how Watatsumi Island got its shape but still maintains its magic seascape. Anyway, not to be distracted, but essentially in this realm of current knowledge, I made the hypothesis that this falling jadeite was a moon sister, with an obvious flaw in my deduction. Because we've all seen the Nordcry teaser showing the 3 moons, and it's white, blue, and purple, definitely not green. But here's the idea. Genshin's timeline is full of domino effects and false narratives due to different perspectives. So, with my research, I argue that 2 things can be true, which has become my favorite mantra to answer Genshin questions, but this also means that there is a lot to extrapolate. So, regarding the rain jade, for now, let's just take away the simple colors of yellow or golden form and blue spirit form that can either merge or gets created by green jade. In the spirit of research, we're visiting Fontaine's Arkhium facilities. Fontaine's combat system introduces the concept of arc, pneuma and usia energies that can be found in condensed form throughout the region. When these energies combine, they create an annihilation reaction through nullifying each other. This reaction also generates energy. It can be assumed that arc energy originates from primordial sea, as the characters from Fontaine have the same origins. Arkhium is the unstable energy source that Edwin Eastinghouse was experimenting on when he caused the explosion of the Research Institute. This power source was found in the Geode mineshaft, the abandoned production zone connected to the primordial sea in the Fortress of Meripede. This vibrant green ore is described to wield immense energetic potential. It was the energy source used to create the experimental field generator. The green ore was forged and tempered on an enormous scale, and through smithing, the scientists discovered its properties of condensed pneuma and usia energies. The combination of blue and yellow energies to give off the green hue. Now, how exactly did Eastinghouse create the prototype gravity field generator through his research in pneuma? While his failure was caused by the neglect of usia energies, we can still learn a lot from his creation. The gravity device has an Arkhium core that condenses matter into black holes. Its core has the characteristics of splitting or precipitation, and since density of matter is the precursor to a black hole, by definition this condensed pneuma energy should be warping space, and that's why when the core splits in combat, it causes low gravity in its surroundings. Annihilation reaction is a phenomenon that's described in real physics regarding the collision between matter and antimatter particles. This collision results in mutual destruction of mass and converting it into energy. Usually, the energy released is as photons or light particles. In Genshin's terms, if pneuma is a representation of matter, we can surmise that uxia is a representation of antimatter. What this means in terms of Jade is that maybe the power of this green gem could be the combination of yellow powers of matter and blue spiritual energies, similar to how Fujin's body was made in gold and we had to collect blue spirit carps for her to form a human body. Now, if we use local Fontainians as an example, the Eudex of Fontaine Arkhium only has the pneuma alignment, so he could only transmute spiritual blue energies into gold matter. In the Archon quest, he does exactly that when he turns his people's blood made from primordial seawater into matter deemed legal by the heavenly principles. Long story short, he turned blue blood into gold blood. And in Furina's case, false laws with the powers of both pneuma and uxia could be assumed to be a higher power than Neuvillette. Therefore, she had the seat of authority. Of course, she splits her material form to create Furina while her spiritual form is left behind to be sacrificed. Now that we have more context to what the screen could be, I think it's time to look at the sun. More specifically, the tablet of Tona that represents the Wheel of Fate in Natlan. While my theory was that Jade belongs to the moon, this tablet depicts the neon green embedded in the heart of the sun. The sun, without a doubt, is the most mysterious entity within all of Teyvat. There are songs and histories about the moons and the stars, yet the biggest star that lights our sky goes largely unmentioned. Until now, Natlan is a civilization partially inspired by Mesoamerican culture and mythology. The sun was central to life in cosmology, symbolizing energy, power, and the cycle of creation and destruction. They believed that the current sun, the fifth sun, required human sacrifices to sustain its journey across the sky to prevent the world's end. The sun also represents Huitzilopochtli, the warrior who fought daily against darkness. Jade symbolizes life, fertility, and eternity. It was associated with water, maize, and the cycle of renewal, so it was valued higher even than gold. Jade represents the sacred connection between the physical and spiritual worlds, embodying purity and vitality. Interesting. I've heard this before. Now, in the story with Kukulkan, we learn that his life story is centered around his brother's eyeballs. More specifically, his brother who was the Pyro Dragon sovereign, Xiuquoatl, who used his eyes to create Huitzilopochtli and the astral assemblages. The Great Dragon condenses phlogiston, which contains all the energies of the elements, into a black hole. 2 black holes actually, so that just in case things go wrong in Teyvat, he could just wipe the world clean. Just a reminder, this explosion not only encompasses all of Teyvat, but since it's a giant mass of light funneled right through the astral assemblages, the plan is to mutually annihilate the abyss, leaving absolute nothingness. A massive pneuma-uxia reaction basically. This whole device is sealed and engraved into a jade that's split in half. These are called the Jades of Returns that we know in game. And speaking of jade, let's talk about our favorite color, green. Just some notes in the sun. There is a spectrum of wavelengths that human can perceive, and this is called the visible spectrum. These wavelengths are detected from red, green, and blue cones receptors in our eyes, which is how we perceive the colors of the world. Interestingly, the sun actually emits the most amount of green wavelengths in its light, so in Genshin terms, maybe dendro energies could be the most abundant, but yet, even more intriguingly, the inner core layer of the sun is also neon green. This neon green layer is the core energy production for the sun. It's essentially a giant molten radioactive furnace for nuclear fusion, and the main element that's crucial for this process is uranium-235. Uranium is a radioactive element that we can find abundant on Earth actually. It's even more common than gold or silver. Uranium itself isn't green, but the association of green came by the instruments scientists used to look at the sun. They essentially had to X-ray the sun to see its layers, and under UV light, the core glowed neon green, which is extra interesting by the way, if we consider the abyss wavelengths as the ultraviolet range. And back to uranium. Uranium-235 is an isotope of uranium. This formation of element allows for nuclear chain reactions to generate power. And in terms of power, while Fontaine gave us the aftermath of an atomic bomb, in Natlan we witnessed a nuclear explosion firsthand. Nuclear explosions are stronger than atomic. Atomic bombs only utilize nuclear fission, while nuclear bombs utilize nuclear fission and fusion. We got to see the collision of these two yellow black holes as opposed to a blue and yellow black hole. Compared to Eastinghouse, who only investigated the properties of splitting in Numa, Huitzilopochtli was caused by the fusing of these spheres of condensed matter, resulting in a bigger explosion of light. So here's the thing, phlogiston was the original matter used to create these black holes of matter, insinuating that phlogiston is the primal material that created all physical matter. I realized at this point that condensed forms of phlogiston, or matter, emits gold. So my search for green grows stale, yet this realization of gold is exactly the ammo I needed to prosecute the Lord of the Sands. Traveling back in time and looking at the Black Sun, I wanted to look at the color coding in Sumeru. King Deshret was part of 3 rulers of Old Sumeru, who were Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, that had the domain of life, Nabu Malikata, that had domain over the banquet, and King Deshret, who had the authority to create life. Rukkhadevata had the access to memories of Tevat as a conscious part of the Omen Soul, while Deshret glowed in all colors and had been offered the Gnosis of Knowledge, while Nabu Malikata is a survivor of an ancient Seelie race, so they were all gods of wisdom in their own right. After the first calamity, the goddess of flowers fell and wandered the lands. Blood ran from her bare feet and created rivers, flowers, and subsequently lotuses that gave life to Jinni. Malikata also created Tignarians through her tears, and they established the sapphire city of Tuletula. Outside of casually seeing the goddess of flowers while the Dendra Archon third wheels, Deshret was devoted to the research to achieve eternal life and resurrection, so that they could surpass the reigns of the heavenly principles. Through the help of Nabu Malikata, who sacrificed herself to show Deshret the laws of the world, he achieved forbidden knowledge and was successful in separating his mind from body. This forbidden knowledge was then unleashed upon the world and caused witherings and plagues, tearing apart the spiritual energies within all physical matter, to which Rukkhadevata quelled with her powers of life. Here are 2 important energies that are noteworthy from the civilization. With the separation of his mind, he imbued it into the monuments throughout his kingdom as an energy source that gets powered in his golden slumber. The golden slumber is like a spell that sends a person's consciousness into a will or a hive mind forever. The death of the material golden body as the hive mind lives on. A person would have to pass 3 trials before Deshret deems your soul is pure, and after all the conditions are met, Admin Deshret will then let you into the Hive Mind Club. Within the slumber, you are part of 1,000 consciousnesses, including Deshret himself. During the quest also named Golden Slumber, Samael entered the Hive Mind and was able to control a dreamland energy that was dark blue, showing that you are able to use godly powers with a strong enough will. And onto this blue energy source is the extension of the Golden Slumber. If the hive mind is like sleep, then the energy produced are dreams. Lilupar and the other Jinnis have powers of dreams just like Nahida. Lilupar once gifted Kisara the plans to create machines to trap Jinnis through a dream. This is akin to Adepti powers or Usia. This is an energy taken from the subconscious or the non-physical realm. In relation to Nahida, she also utilized the Akasha system that Rukkhadevata created that the Fatui took advantage over to harvest dreams. It is a blue earpiece that resembles a leaf, and it connects everyone's minds to one control center, sharing all knowledge between users. In the same line, Rukkhadevata, without the authority to create life, seeing Nabu Malikata's lawful creation of Jinnis, she created the Aranaras. Aranaras are spiritual beings hidden in their dream world. They're all connected to Nahida without an Akasha. These musical plants should be legal in this world as they have no physical bodies. And this matters because she only has the powers of life, but not the authority. Therefore, she should be prohibited from creating life that exists in our physical realm. Now that there is more context regarding the colors of gold and yellow or blue in Sumeru, now it's time to wonder why King Deshret is depicted with red, green and blue and how this all relates to Jade and my hypothesis regarding the moon. The Red Lord of the Sands wasn't always surrounded by the 10-pointed star. He was once depicted as a blue-green diamond with a red core and golden wings almost resembling a crystal fly. This information, along with Deshret's rejection of the offer of the Gnosis just to share his throne with 2 others, may be an indicator that authority could be split. In theory, each of these gods represent a color in Deshret's power. Nahida for green, Nabu Malikata for blue, Deshret for red. Together as RGB, they create the circle of life, more on that in the later video. Since Deshret has the domain over the red color and the authority to create life, he always has the red core even after absorbing forbidden knowledge. His heart will always be red, yet he also has the powers of life and the banquet. Here is where I would like to introduce the concept of moon cores, but let's call these the hearts or the wills of the moons, or even directives. The moons having cores or hearts is not too unfamiliar a concept now that we have heart iconography coming into Nod Cry. Similar to the sun having a core, the moon's core would be its main drive of energy or power. These may even be the pearls that we saw that became Inefa's vision. After the Nod Cry teaser, we now understand that the moons were created by the Dragon King Nibelung before leaving for the Abyss. These moons assume the role of the 3 fates to govern the laws of the old dragon world, including the passage of time, death, and rebirth. It was here that I took a giant leap in assumptions that honestly led me to write 6 separate scripts and start this channel. We know that Nibelung governed black. What if he only had the powers to govern black through the 3 most fundamental realms in Teyvat? Phlogiston, that represents red, primordial waters, that represents blue, and the green tree of memories. Nibelung only having the powers of red, green, and blue makes so much sense with the recent Holiday Resort expansion. The Dragon King was a being of light realm and refracted colors into additive colors of RGB. Natlan has introduced half-tone color shading throughout its character designs, web screens, and this was a clear indication on how the dragons painted the world. The stippling half-tone effect was what we saw when we explored the heart of the volcano. Nibelung created RGB pixels on a plane essentially and left the world to be governed by 3 moons the same colors. I don't think that the moons are color coordinated RGB that simply. I think that these moons all had different cores and different surfaces, and they all serve different functions, but they all enacted the laws that transmute life. Since this was about Jade, let's elaborate on this moon system. Within this theory, Jade's primary color is green, and yet it has heavy associations with hydro and life, so let's add water to this green sphere. And the last step is to add the core. Since the Jade had the authority to create life, I believe this core Jade should be red, just like Deshret. And now with this version of the moon, let's follow this Jade moon that carries the waters of life and trace the footsteps of what happened from the ancient world. The eternal moon who carried the waters of life descended and crashed into the area of the chasm. This caused the first floods of the world in the area of Leo. The moon had settled in the chasm quite some time. After the authority to create life was seized, the vitality stored within her seeped into the rocks and created sentience in ancient life forms. These lifeforms and people created the city named after the Jade Moon, Li Yue. Her waters of life extended downwards towards the ancient city that built around it. Jade fragments were also harvested into ritual items that later migrated to Chenyu Vale, where they cleansed the corrupted waters with jades of life energy. There was a will that came with the moon. This surviving will could be named Nabu Malikata. Nabu was given a body using golden vitality during the second era. She wandered the lands for 72 nights, creating springs of water, oases, and lifeforms from her blood. Ginny, like Lilupar, is depicted as a red angel with gold accents, similar to the physical components of the goddess of flowers, with a red heart and golden blood. Nabu also created half-humans, half-fox beings called Tignarians, with her tears filled with emotions and grief for her old civilization and sisters. These beings will later have human descendants with golden features. She later meets King Deshret and Rukkhadevata, and under the new world they all become friends for eras to come. When Deshret asks the Moon Maiden to show him the rules of the world, she was hesitant, but eventually sacrificed herself. Deshret succeeded in creating the Golden Slumber and the Eternal Dreamland, even though he unleashed Elazar and the Withering upon the world, slowly rotting away the progress that he's been building. Realizing the downfall of Gurabad due to Lilupar and the Abyss, Deshret creates Aru. Aru is the culmination of his ambitions, which will encompass the entire desert. In Aru, no one would have to experience age or decay. It also means a field of reeds. compared to the original afterlife system that he created that trapped deaths and memories of the desert in the desert. He created an inverted system to the pyramid that releases the encased souls of his civilization. Growing from atop the pyramid, the golden spirit tree functions like the ley lines, connecting together via the monuments filled with blue spiritual energies that are behaving like ley line nodes. Now, descendants of Aru prosper in the area that borders the rainforest, protected by Candace, who has entrancing golden and blue eyes. Now, with that story time over, there are obviously a few conclusions that I threw in there myself without any explanation, including the golden blood stuff. What's that about? Yet, I don't think this is the perfect topic to discuss this because I'm writing a video on all of the races in Teyvat. Saying that, I hope you still enjoyed my little allegorical story of the Jade. Now that we're here, I wanted to do a quick summary of what this thought experiment led to. Neon green is a very unfamiliar color in our known color spectrum, yet it shows up in every region. Through analysis of the color coding yellow and blue using Numa Osea reactions, condensed phlogiston, and spiritual adeptal powers, we could come to the conclusion that yellow stands for matter and blue stands for matters of the subconscious, and that you could condense each of these to create a different hue. Further analysis of matter and subconscious powers in Sumeru, we learnt how Deshret leverages these forces with the help of Nabu Malikata to successfully create his golden slumber and Aru. This green stone could have been the green moon that carried the waters and authority of life when it fell upon the world during the calamity. That was a part of the primordial elements of the world that Nibelung created for his order. Nibelung, with powers of RGB similar to the depiction of Deshret, created life, death, and the cycle of rebirth using the moon's powers. With that conclusion out the way, the video is almost ending, but if you can't tell, writing these scripts and coming up with these ideas, it kind of spawned a billion more ideas. So it took a lot of questions to get up to this point. That's why I thought it would be better to have this as a 6-part series. And now for future videos, just to give you a little preview, they kind of include topics from Taoism and the color coding of souls. I had a question on the Wheel of Fate, and also I really wanted to figure out the root of all of the races in Teyvat. Like, why are there so many foxes? I also had a part on Genshin's quantum mechanics. The final part should be an analysis on Genshin through the perspectives of different renaissances. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this theory video. I hope you like and subscribe, and maybe I will see you in my next video. Bye bye! Aru in mythology is a heavenly paradise, but it also means a reed of fields. A reed of fields? Who's a reed of fields? She was attempting to restore the balance between water and soil throughout the jail. The jail? She was attempting to restore the balance between the water and soil throughout... She was attempting